afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name's Emma Hall at Movin Legal Relationships Director. Today, we are joined by Roger Morris, Group Distribution Director at Kent Reliance. And we have our guest today, which is Paul Elliott of Propp. Roger, do you want to do a little introduction for yourself and then Paul?
Good afternoon, everybody anybody who's listening to this on catch up afterwards. Good evening, good morning, or wherever you are in the world. My name is Roger Morris, Group Distribution Director for Kent Reliance for Intermediaries, and my role, hopefully, will be to be able to cover off some of the aspects of our group today. Thanks, Emma.
And Paul, do you want to do a little introduction?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Paul Elliott, as Emma has said. I'm Managing Director of Propp. We are a whole-of-market mortgage intermediary, but specifically we're focused on the specialist lending market. So we do primarily buy-to-let mortgages, bridging finance, commercial and development finance. We've recently launched Propp.io, which is our technology-led platform that is giving clients more transparency to be able to search for bridging loans and commercial mortgages.
Thank you. So we'll start off with some questions. Some are ones that I've had actually sent in to me by some people. So we're going to start with, and this is to both of you, is how can you utilize technology to grow your business? So how have you both used technology to grow? And Paul, probably to you, how are you going to use technology to grow from your new startup? So
Sure.
Roger, do you want to go first?
Yeah, very happy. So I think when Tim Berners-Lee invented the internet in CERN in 1990, and it was one of the gifts that CERN gave to the world about sharing data. It could have easily been monetarized, but it was just decided to do the right thing. I think it was because it was a collaboration of just about every country in the world. Internet has just transformed our lives. If you now look at the 10 richest businesses in the world, pre and post the internet, we can now just see the likes of Amazon, Google, Facebook, Microsoft have been created because they've acknowledged and absorbed technological changes. We now absorb more information on our smartphones than we've ever done. So by being able to use technology really does allow you to speed up the process. So the positives for this would be in the way that we've interacted by making sure that when we send out emails, communication and messages, it can be received on either the computer as we're on now or on our smartphones. And again, this isn't necessary. People look at the way we absorb information. So we send out an email. How does it look when we look at a smartphone? Does it look the same? But when it comes to brokers who are using our system, we're constantly taking feedback to how to improve it. So Paul has worked with me for more years than I can remember. So when Paul's using our system and we're having conversations, Paul will be constantly feeding back into ways that we can automate and reduce the ability to maybe require information because you're able to go to credit bureaus or maybe you're able to do data scrapes or utilize systems that create efficiency. But I think there is a point where technology, we should stop, and actual manual underwriting also takes place because you can't beat a common sense decision, particularly within the effects of COVID-19. We're creating more and more specialist customers than we've ever done in the past. And having a human being that can assess income and make an informed common sense decision is more important, I think, than it's ever been as technology marches on. And as the fact, without a doubt, we've all become much more digitally savvy. Even grannies now using Zoom to communicate with us. So it's just trying to get a balance between the advent and change that COVID-19 has brought into our lives. Could you imagine being in lockdown, Emma, without the internet?
I couldn't imagine going on holiday without the internet. A weekend without my internet now. But no, I have to agree. I must admit, I'm very glad we sorted our elder relatives out with technology in the previous years and taught them on it because they really would be lost.
Yeah.
But Paul, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, going way back when I got into this industry and started my first business, I think back to that quite often and think without the internet, without the ability to contact customers and get inquiries over the internet, I probably wouldn't have been able to get into the industry. I wouldn't have been able to start a business. You know, the money that you would have had to invest to go out and market and get that direct business, I just didn't have it. So it's always been a part of any business that I've been involved in terms of the growth strategy, is about utilizing the internet to start with. And that's really developed over the years into the bolt-on technology that we can now use. So, you know, you're seeing lots and lots of companies using electronic identification. As Roger alluded to, more and more people now are using smartphones. So the smartphone has really been that next generation of technology that we've all embraced. We did some data, some stats on our website the other day, and found 64% of people that have been on the website had done so from a smartphone. So, you know, that's how we've evolved. And we've had to make sure that our business is adapted to that, to make sure that the website looks great when it comes through on a smartphone or a tablet, that it flows properly, that customers can get to the information that they need to as quickly as possible as well. We've used technology to grow through, as I said, our online presence. And going back to that point about the internet was really designed to sort of share and democratize information. And we're trying to do that with our website. So, you know, a customer can go on and look at bridging finance, and they can plug in 2 or 3 pieces of information, and within seconds they've got a list of the top providers of bridging finance. We're not asking them for anything, we're giving them. So we're just hoping to show them that you know, there's information out there for them to use, and then that they'll trust us, that they'll then come back and talk to us as and when they're in a position to talk about it in more detail. And so far that seems to be working quite well with customers. So it's interesting to see the next stage of growth as we start to bring in other types of technology. You know, one of the things that we really want to do is try to get to a stage where we're talking to the likes of Reliance and Precise and other specialist lenders about trying to unify the application process. It's been done, you know, with mixed results in the residential space, but I think there's an opportunity now, you know, maybe as a result of COVID, where we've all gone into this online space for our meetings and everything else that we're doing, that there's an opportunity to have that conversation again about can we get some sort of universal application that will allow lenders to do what they need to do and have that manual underwriting process, as you say, Roger, but just save customers time, save brokers time, save everyone a lot of time by adopting, you know, some technology that gives transparency to everyone.
And Emma, what about you? I know we've both covered it off, but what from about a Movin legal point of view?
Well, from a Movin legal point of view, I mean, I very much agree with Paul's comment on transparency. It is being as possibly transparent as we can. On our panel, we do have a panel of solicitors. We do have an agreement with them all. They have to be transparent with all of their fees. It's great going in there with your headline figure, a bit like doing with the mortgage, you're going with your headline figure, but when you delve into the interest and all the other bits that get added on top, you need to be honest and upfront with the client day one. Don't get me wrong, there'll be the odd thing that the human touch is needed. We do need to get more hands-on with bridging and specialist finance. So our system will quote and do that, but every bridge and specialist case is different. There's a different expectation of the client. There's a different timeline. That's a matter of us getting the basics, which, like your system, Paul, we can easily do. But then it's a matter of the human touch of one of us actually being on the phone to say, right, how quickly does the client need it? Tell me about the property. Is someone in it at the moment? Is it a renovation property? Are you converting it into flat? We need more of the nuts and bolts so we can get a realistic time scale from the lender. So yes, we've got all the front end tech, which is great. We track, it all works. But when it comes to the specialist, I think there's a lot to still be said about that human touch. Once you've done that initial fact find, you do need a human that step in, and technology, I don't think, can always cover everything completely. It can certainly get you part of the way there. It can probably help you sometimes at the back end, but that middle bit does tend to need that bit of human touch. And really, it's 100%. About communication. There's only so many questions a system can ask without you actually having a client sitting there for 5 hours filling in every possible scenario and variation just to get that one answer. My attention span is quite short. I want to do something in less than 60 seconds and just get a yes, maybe, or a no, then I move on. If it's a yes, then yeah, I'm happy to go and look. So I think it's also maybe attention span of consumers. You've got a short window to get their attention. I'm that short window.
Yeah.
Once you got my attention, I'm there. That's good. But I've
Yeah,
probably
agreed.
touched on it a bit there, and this is something that I've picked up with Paul. Technology does have its limitations, i.e. the human touch. So is that something when you've got your technology that you're also addressing, that you've got to build in that human touch through the process, both in the lending side and both with the brokers and both in the client side as well? Who wants to go first?
Let Paul
Roger?
go on this one.
Oh,
Oh,
No.
okay. Thank you, Roger. Ever the gentleman. Yeah, I mean, we touched on it before, didn't we, Emma? And something that we've really been conscious about doing is using technology at the right stage in the process. So if you look at your buying process from a customer perspective, we're using technology to give them the information that they need before they're ready to actually commit. But at no point are we expecting to build this all singing, all dancing algorithm that won't need that human touch. So we flagged up the areas where we need to get involved and where we actually add value. Our business is founded by financial services experts, not by tech people. So the way that we bring value to this is by using our experience to put a deal together, to be able to talk to customers about different ways in which they might be able to finance their project. So you're right, it's that front end will give them what they need instantly, but then when they're ready to actually go through the process, that's when we step in. So we'll get the inquiry, we'll call the client, we'll put some meat on the bones, as it were. And we find that works well with our lending partners as well. So the last thing they want is just some data that a client has put in fired over to them with no details about the case, no nuances about what the client's trying to do. So we build that into our process so that the customer, the lender is getting a real good overview of the client and what they're looking for. And we're just using technology to be able to do that part a little bit quicker than typing 15 emails or phoning 15 lenders or going on live chat 15 times. And that's helping us to get better results quicker for the client. It's driving competition. So we're finding lenders are really bought into trying to price as keenly as they can, certainly in the bridging space. So yeah, I don't think the specialist market will ever go to a fully automated process. I think we saw people have a go at it in the residential space, and it didn't quite work. And I don't know whether you will ever replace that person on the end of a phone. People want someone that's going to guide them through and in some cases hold their hand through this process, whether it's the first time they've done it or whether it's the 100th time they've done it. I've had customers before that have said to me, the value in a broker is when things go wrong. And they know that. They know that in the ideal scenario, they should come away at the end of it and think, well, what did he do? Because he's done it all in the background. But we know that things do go wrong and you need to step in, you need to use your connections, you need to, sometimes repackage the deal to get it through. And we find that a lot of our customers understand that that's the value that we bring to the whole process.
It's a very good point, that, Paul, about the fact that you are like a swan, and the fact that when problems are happening, your clients aren't aware, and at the end of it, they think, "What do you do for that?" And you're laid exhausted because you've actually pulled off miracles without them seeing it. What I would say to the response to your question, Emma, is my customer is 100% Paul. We're 100% intermediary. So when I use the word customer, I am referring only to a mortgage broker. We don't deal with the consumer at all. So we're 100% intermediary. And there's many different variations of Paul in the marketplace. So if you think you've got customers, brokers who like to pick up the phone and they want to chat through on every case and they want to talk to a human being. We've got those that are just very happy. Show me the technology. I'll go on, I'll do a decision in principle and it's a yes or a no. Or I want to use maybe a kind of a mixture of online criteria or being able to do some form of web chat function. What we've been doing during COVID-19 is looking to see how brokers want to deal with us. So where a BDM adds value is how much do you really value your BDM? When they ring up to have a chat, is it just to see how you did over the weekend and just to fill out the call log sheet, which a lot of BDMs have been doing? And as the vast majority of BDMs have been desk-based for nearly 12 months, when the market starts to open up, which lender BDMs are you going to have in your office? And are you going to ask the question, why do you want to come in? And do I have to see you? And those BDMs that offer real value, whether it be education, training, or being able to come in and sit with somebody at the desk and work a case and be able to assess what information they've got and help make sure that the submission and get that right first time, I think becomes imperative. What you'll find maybe in the future is a much more beefed up desk-based process. So what you've got is you've got a desk-based BDM support team that if you can't get hold of your BDM, you're going to have a number to ring where you're going to get hold of somebody within the sales function who can then go and speak to the underwriter or find out what the problem is, because we do want information straight away. So maybe your brokers, like Paul's been ringing me, he's always been able to get hold of me because I'm based at home. The moment I'm back out on the road, I'm not going to be able to give Paul that same immediate answer that I did before. So I think what you're going to have is BDMs who offer real value, and that can really help the broker. And when it comes to head offices, they need to be much more responsive and accurate and supportive of trying to work out what the problem is. And then also feed that back to changes in technology, information you have on the website. Maybe if you've had a phone call at head office from 50 brokers asking one question, then maybe that question should be put on your website. So it's an evolving process about where we need to fit with our customer contact and how that experience is taken. But I think it's down to the broker. People want to be treated differently, and it's being able to cater for all tastes. What about you, Emma, if we finish off that question with you?
I was going to say I agree with that, because we have a different, I deal with brokers on a day-to-day basis. I'm a little bit like you. I'm often doing webinars and training and other things, not just the day-to-day BDM role. It's a very mixed role. However, when I'm working with my BDMs and I know the broker, I'm like, right, this broker likes to work in this way, this broker this way. They all like to work in their own way that suits their business model that they've got in place, probably to do with their staffing or their technology. So it fits in. And then it's a matter of us working with our solicitors. Look, this broker actually doesn't want you to ever ring him. Please just copy him into every email. So they set it up so he just gets a copy of everything. This broker loves to talk. Make a cup of tea before you ring them, then ring them and then have the conversation. He wants to be on the phone, or she. So it's just a matter of treating each one as an individual and using what we have as a service to be able to deliver it. Like you say, people want answers now. We're not a very patient society. I think we're a little bit less patient at the moment with lockdown, COVID, the snow last week, stamp duty holiday. So I do think as a world, we are a little bit more impatient. We have got it set up that if someone can't get me, they know who to go to next in the office. If they can't get to them. So we have sort of a chain of people that we're teamed together, that if you do need to speak to someone, you don't get me, you do have someone else. So we've had that set up for quite a long time, particularly when we were in the field. We would be going in between appointments, and if it was an urgent completion due that day, and with solicitors, we're obviously on very strict timelines. It's got to go by such a day, such a time, otherwise the banking system shuts. So me being in an event between 1 and 4 o'clock might not be particularly helpful to that broker. So they do need that backup. So I think you're right, it is about having the organisation. I think we're very spoilt to a point at the moment that we are all at home. So we are a lot more contactable. As we start going back out, we'll be less contactable, or it will be later in the day that we'll be going back to people. So I think we need to be a bit forward thinking as to what measures are we going to put in place for when that happens, rather than people get a short shock that I don't answer my phone within 30 seconds or ring back within 2 minutes of getting the phone call. So yes, good point. And it sort of leads us on to this one. So we've obviously been locked down since the 23rd of March. So we're nearing the year point. This might be a yes or a no. Did you have to implement any change, other than you obviously sent all your BDMs home? Did it make you look at any of your technology and think, we need to start doing something different? We could have done this better. We need to implement. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first on that. We had an operation that worked from the office. So all our underwriters work from office. And if you look in a modern lender these days, they normally have 2 screens. So you'll have system, maybe you'll have references. Some people have 3 screens. And I often used to wonder, why would you need 3 screens? But I certainly do understand the value. You know, I have 2 screens now, they're not linked, but I certainly know the benefit of bringing up information on one and you got it on something else you refer to quite well. So suddenly you were asked to send all your staff home. So first of all, does everybody have a spare office at home where they can have a desk, and have they got good broadband? Have they got good seating equipment? The answer, the vast majority, unfortunately, people don't have the luxury of a spare bedroom. Then you add the added impact of, do they have children? Because homeschooling was a real pressure, and it was a real lot of stress for a lot of staff who had to work, try and find a place that was quiet enough to work, maybe have to share a computer, maybe they had broadband connections. So there was an awful lot of team effort into try and understand what was needed to work from home effectively. Then the other big aspect of our proposition is we needed valuations. We reliable on physical valuations, and valuers weren't allowed out. So we had to implement a desktop valuation process. So there was some challenges, but I think what you've got to do when you look back a year on, Emma, we are significantly, I think, better placed. We've adapted the technology, we've utilized technology, we've made lots of changes to our processing and our requirements. And I actually think we're going to be better to deal with once we've come out of this whole COVID position, because we've listened to brokers' constant feedback. We have a process internal called broker journey, and we constantly assess from every aspect of the company how to improve the journey for the broker. What can we change? What do we need? What don't we need? So I think we've gone on an incredible journey, and I'm so proud by the partnership that we got with the broker community that have stayed alongside us, that have supported us, that have understood the changes we've implemented. And certainly the engagement of remaining relevant with the webinars. We digitalized what we would have done physically to remain relevant to the broker community. And we've had some incredible turnouts. I think the highest we've ever registered for one workshop that I did was 1,000 brokers. And I think the highest we've had attended was somewhere I actually physically attended was around 600. So we have had some incredible feedback over that last 12 months. But it has been a change without a doubt. Paul, what about you?
I think the biggest thing for us was the this type of technology. So Zoom, Teams, it really just allowed us as a business to continue to communicate. You know, everyone's been using emails for years, but I think a lot of people have really stayed away from this type of technology. We, for whatever reason, we've just felt conscious about doing face-to-face meetings online. You know, I've worked for a business before where Skype was all set up, but customers just never wanted to use it. Yeah. And I think what it's done is it's really pushed society in general, but certainly our industry, people that were maybe a little bit anxious about using it, it's pushed them towards having to use it. And now it's becoming almost the new norm. So, you know, I get customers that say, well, why don't we have a Zoom call, or why don't we have a Teams call? So something that's always been an issue for us over the years is trying to engage with a customer over the telephone. And now what we're getting, because this technology is just out there in society, we're able to have that face-to-face conversation with a client. So we're able to build rapport. You know, there's so many studies about, you know, communication is 90% physical. So by being able to speak to customers, you know, speaking to lenders, whether it's BDMs or, you know, centralized, speaking to anyone really in the chain, by being able to use this technology, I think as if anything, it's improved it. And like Roger said, I think we're all going to come out of this with a stronger ability to communicate. As you said, Emma, different people will want to communicate in different ways, but what the lockdown did is it just brought to the fore another form of communication. Yeah. And it will work well for some customers, it won't work well for other customers, but it's something that we've got, and you know, all of us are here to try and satisfy our customers. And if we've got customers that do want to do a face-to-face, and they're in Scotland and I'm in Hampshire, I can do it now. you know, and I've got more chance of gaining that person's trust and gaining them as a customer because I've got another piece of technology that I can use to do that now.
No, I must admit, I would be lost without Zoom. I would be completely
Yeah.
lost. I know when it first sort of came out as a concept, I first only really used it for personal because those first few weeks of lockdown, you really were stuck. I wasn't nervous on it at all. I quite like seeing my friends. I quite like seeing my family. I've got to admit, I was a little bit nervous when it came to using it for work. Don't know why. I think you just feel a little bit weird just sat in a room talking at a camera. I felt almost like it was my first day standing up as a BDM in 2004 in front of a room of brokers. That all of a sudden, oh my God, people can actually record this as well. This is going to live to haunt me forevermore. As a team, we use it. It's great as actually as a team exercise of BDMs. We've probably bonded more in lockdown because before we were all running around doing our own thing. We didn't meet up probably as much. We did our phone calls, but we never physically sort of met face to face unless we wandered onto each other's patch. So it's actually for a team bonding exercise for us. It's actually been really good. Once we convinced some people to come on camera and that their hair and makeup was fine, not to worry about it. Still have quite a lot of black screens when I do some of my training where people don't like to actually come up. From a legal perspective, I'm hoping that it moves things forward a little bit, that people haven't been able to physically go and see solicitors face to face. So there has been that push whereby they've had to utilize Skype, they've had to utilize Zoom, Teams, they are having to give that face to face advice like this. I really hope that is something that they choose under their compliance, and it is under the Law Society and compliance and each individual company. But I do hope it's something they actually move forwards and actually continue to do, because it really does help speed up the process. They're not having to wait to do that physical appointment, having to go and sit with them. You could probably halve the time you do it in because you're not having that actual messing around. So I hope solicitors, I hope it is something they do take forward, because I do think that is a definite positive for us.
Yeah, and I suspect it's useful for those customers that really find it challenging to get into to the solicitors as well, Emma. You know, in normal circumstances, if you've got someone that's living remotely and maybe doesn't drive, you know, how are they supposed to get in to sort of do that face to face? So,
And it's fitting around your working day.
Yeah.
If you're in a 9 to 5 job and you can't get that time off, and there'll be a lot of industries at this point in time that won't be allowing their staff to have the leave, and we know that's happening up until we get, they are working hours, they are being flexible, they are speaking to clients at 7-8 o'clock at night to actually do these calls when they can fit in. So it's the flexibility that I think would be good moving forwards. Let's see if it stays. Hopefully it does. But if we move on, and we'll try and move away a little bit from COVID and what's going on at the moment, what areas of your business do you think technology's enhanced the most for the customer journey? So if you could pick one bit of your technology that you think that's really made it better for consumer or the broker, have you got something that you think we couldn't live without that now? It needs to stay.
Roger?
I would say the webinars. I think in the past there's been lots of people who've wanted to come and listen to upskill. Paul know with buy to let how many people really understand buy to let, and it's like an onion. The more you go into it, the more you've got to learn, and the more there's more components to it. By being able to get friends of mine who live in Cornwall and Norfolk and Scotland and Cumbria to be able to attend events that realistically was a forward drive there and a forward drive back, and where now they can just log on, listen to what they want, or catch it on download. We've been able to do webinars on how to read accounts, how to read credit reports, how to read bank statements. We've had a bigger reach. And the other day, I did 3 events where I was able to get in front of 670 people over 3 events. Now, in the past, it would have only been one of those events. And then the other argument would have been the biggest event of that day, only half the people would have normally turned up because it was a physical event. So I do think webinars would be the one thing that we've, as a business, would never have done in the past, but we did it immediately. So yeah, mine would be webinars.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well, Roger. I mean, from a broker perspective, it just gives you the ability to listen to the content at a time that suits you.
Yeah.
As you said, you know, even if it's half an hour, an hour's drive to get to an event, it's just time that's, you know, if you're running a business day to day, you're out there trying to sort of earn a living, you make that cost benefit analysis, and quite often it's, well, I've got to speak to my customer at this time, you know, and you end up losing out on information that, you know, from previous experience would benefit you to go and listen to. But it's that balance always between improving your understanding of a proposition and looking after your customers, I suppose. So the webinars have definitely been useful, particularly, as you said, when you can download them and just sort of, if you're doing a bit of exercise, you can have it on in your ears and just sort of listen to the content. So they've been very good. And I know personally, I'd want those to continue, you know, well past the situation that we're in now. In terms of, sorry, go on, Emma.
No, go on. No, go on. You go on.
Well, I was going to say, in terms of what could we not live without, that's a really good question. There's so many things, I think. In terms of what we've adopted in the last year or so, I think just being able to do, you know, electronic verification of customers' ID is probably one of the biggest game changers. You know, the days of asking customers to send stuff in by special delivery and then keeping your fingers crossed that a passport turns up in the post. It was just, you know, it was always one of the barriers to sort of getting a customer to buy in was, well, I've really got to send you my passport. I've really got to send you my driving license. So being able to do electronic identification, it doesn't always work out, but, you know, 90% of the time it works. I think that's been a real game changer for us. But there are other things in there as well. You know, one of the systems that we've built that allow us to communicate with multiple lenders in one go about an inquiry, that's improved the customer journey, albeit that the customer doesn't see it. It's allowed us to get answers for them a lot quicker as well. But I think, yeah, electronic ID and moving on to the next stage of being able to, you know, we're looking to partner with firms where we can get customers to upload their documents to an app with us, and then we're downloading those securely and assessing them. All of those types of things, I think, will really continue to push the customer journey forward. And I think it's, in some cases, you know, there's going to be more demand from customers for that type of thing to be the norm as well.
I think I definitely agree with webinars, and I do think we are stuck with webinars for, I think, a good 18 months plus. I think this is something that there's not going to be a tap overnight that switches and then all of a sudden we're back out in hotels driving around the country again. I think it is going to be a very, very slow, and I think people are reassessing the way they want to live their life as well. Do they want to be traveling around as much when they can either log on live or log on at their pleasure? Or, like you say, I know quite a few people that do just put it on YouTube and listen to it when they're on a walk or a run, and they do it in that way, a bit like a podcast. So I do think moving forwards, I definitely couldn't live without webinars, and definitely couldn't live with the training aspect. That, you know, we did launch a new product last year. We were all ready for launching that product, and all of the BDMs were going to go around the country selling it face to face. We do want to get face to face, and as soon as we can do it safely as a business, we want to go back to doing that. There's no question about that. But I think we will include the model of the webinars in there, that there is only so much of us that can go around, and there are only so many people that do want to travel out. Whereas if they can just log on to do a half-hour training session, get their CPD points from doing it, add a new business onto their business that can earn them some more money, I definitely think it was something I will use a lot more. I'll give a personal example. I've always wanted to do a meditation course. Found the course I wanted to do. The one thing that put me off, I had to go and sit in a room with strangers I didn't know and meditate. I felt very self-conscious, not doing it. As soon as lockdown happened, his course went online on Zoom live. Well, I was in, booked everything. I could put myself on mute. I could hide my camera. I got to do the course. Happy. So I think it will fit those people that sometimes can't or don't want to go to something. They've actually got an option to be included in it rather than excluded.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Interestingly, I think there's something that we can learn from how teachers have had to adopt over the last 12 months as well. I've explained to you guys already, but just for the sake of viewers, where I am at the moment, my wife and I run a boarding house in a college, and my wife's a teacher here at the college. So they've had to go on to online teaching as well. But when the college was open, there were quite a lot of students that were having to isolate, some with COVID, some that have been in contact with people. And so what the college had implemented was the live lessons were actually recorded. So you could either dial in live and you could be interactive within the lesson with your peers whilst the lesson was going on, or it was recorded, put onto Google Classroom, and then you could listen to it at a time that suits you. That's been really important for some of the, as I said, we run a boarding house here and we've got international students, so we've got a really strong relationship with the Falkland Islands, and there's a 4-hour time difference for them. We've got some students in Hong Kong, again, big time difference. So where they hadn't been able to get back to the UK, the teachers have been recording their lessons and allowing them to watch them at a time that's convenient for them. So maybe that's something that we can take moving forward, is that having the ability to go to live training events, but also having them recorded and allowing those people that can't get there to utilize the skills that people like Roger bring to those meetings. I think maybe that's something that we should look at.
Yeah, I think with the homeschooling as well, we might pick time frames that suit all of us, but it might not actually work within the whole homeschooling. And if you've got 2 parents working at home and you're homeschooling, and like Roger says, how many rooms do you have? How many laptops do you have? You need that extra screen. But there's all sort of these factors to sort of fit in.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on. We're nearly there. So this is from a lender perspective and a broker as well. So if someone was looking at, right, I really want to get into this property market now, what in terms of technology would you quite expensive to set up? Is there anything you would advise them that they really should consider to do?
Sorry, Emma, my internet connection went just as you were asking that question.
There we go, technology. So from a lender and a broker perspective, if someone was joining the property market now to set up, in terms of technology, what would you advise them to do? What would you advise them is crucial that they look at?
Okay. I'll take this one first, Roger, if that's all right. I would say that probably the key thing to focus on, once you've figured out where you're going to get your business from, is about how you're going to manage the inquiries that come in and manage your customer from acquisition stage through to processing stage through to then client retention, and having a good back office system, whether that's a off-the-shelf CRM, and there's plenty of them out there these days. I mean, we did a lot of research when we were setting up Propp, and looked at a variety of options. And I was given, the last time I looked at this type of thing was probably about 10 or 15 years ago in terms of new CRMs. I was just amazed by what some of them do these days. So investing some money, whether it's as I said, an off-the-shelf system that you pay for licensing, and building that into your customer management, I think is really important. Obviously, you've got to make sure that you go out there and get the business in the first place. But the last thing you want to do is spend lots and lots of time and work really hard to get a customer. And then because you get so busy and you're not managing it properly, that customer falls by the wayside, or they go to another broker, or whatever it might be. It's a competitive market. So having something that can help you to manage your clients properly, down to what you said, Emma, about which way do they want to be contacted? Is it email? Is it phone? Is it WhatsApp? Whatever it might be. Utilizing technology to do that, I think, is the most important thing to anyone that was coming into this market as a broker now.
Yeah. Roger?
My point of view is, I think as a lender, we wouldn't want to direct or recommend to a broker any particular product provider when it comes to the technology, and certainly not from a consumer point of view. But what I would do is just reiterate and endorse what Paul said there about taking your time, really researching it. Don't, once you've embedded a piece of technology, when I was a broker, it's very hard to move to something else. So it's about really understanding that if you're going to start a business or you're going to get technology, you really want to make sure you've apportioned the right amount of time and that you really understand what it is that you are going to pay for and embed into your business. But technology, if it's the right technology and it's suitable for the way that your business transacts, and then ultimately how you're going to then move it through into your customer, you're just going to make sure it's right, it's fit and proper, but it will deliver benefits. We know that that will occur, but I would just really, Paul's the expert on this, so I would leave that one to his opinion.
Yeah,
one thing I'd probably add, Emma, is when you're looking at those systems, look at what it's taking off your plate as well. So if it's taking something away from you that can be automated, that allows you to do what you're good at, which is, you know, deal with your customers, then that's one of the things that I think is really important when you're looking at these systems as well. You know, the more time that you can spend talking to your customers and looking after your customers' needs and understanding them, and let the admin stuff be automated, you know, the more successful I think you'll be in the current climate.
Yeah, no, I've got to agree with that. I think I very much encourage, one, it's always about getting the right information and understanding the inquiry to begin with, because if it goes wrong at that stage, it is just going to go wrong throughout the entire transaction generally. For me, it is very much about communication, and I love technology. I love it working. I'm very much someone, if I get an email, I'll pick up the phone and ring people, because I sometimes find if it's a complicated conversation, it's a much easier conversation to have over the phone, because you can make sure that person understands it rather than you email back what they think it is. They're then a little bit too scared to ask you back because they think, well, I don't want to ask because they probably think I understand it. So I'm very much is not forgetting that human touch. That technology, I think, is brilliant. It gets us so far. If we can do it admin, it does free us up to do the day-to-day essential we need to do. But I'm always very conscious, don't implement technology at the detriment of that human contact, that human touch, because ultimately that'll be why your client comes back to you. They won't remember you if you were just something on their phone as an avatar. They will remember that human element that they've had.
Yeah, absolutely.
The final one, and I chuck this in, and I'm probably more relevant to me, to be honest with you, but do you think we'll ever be truly paperless? So this is a conversation that has gone on for years and years. I remember when Land Registry were en route to go down the paperless route, then Credit Crunch arrived and that put a stop to that. We're definitely more paperless than we used to be, but do you ever think, and I know some have tried it, do you ever think we'll be truly paperless?
I'll go on this one. We've seen many times where we've seen the end of something. You know, would technology be the end of the mortgage broker? Could you do execution only? You know, you take the super rich, you take a big landlord, Paul, who really knows their onions. I bet you they would have a broker than someone who's just got one buy-to-let. So richer people, I know quite a few really rich people, and they have financial advisors to manage the money. And you would think in this world of technology, do you need that? But look at books. You know, look at the paper books that we have out there. When the electronic devices came out where you can download ebooks, that would be in the end. They prophesied then that would be the end of paper books. Why do you want them? But if you think when you're on holiday and you're by the beach, do you want an electronic device that might get your emails through, that reminds you of work? We live with our smartphones and our iPads, but to have something that is free of that technological incumbent and that physically hold a paper book in our hands, we seem to have fallen back in love with them. If you look at compressed music now, we're starting to see the biggest revival in vinyls, 45s and 33s, and anybody who's old, go and Google that. So will we see the death of paper? I think we'll see a much more automated process through. But isn't it pretty spectacular when you can write your customer a letter which you post out thanking them for the business, maybe your card, maybe your Christmas card, maybe your birthday card, but something physical that's personalized and has a wet ink signature that they know you've taken a bit more time to send. So I think some bits, paper, when it comes to processing a mortgage, will be digitalized and removed dramatically, as we've seen with emails and instead of sending letters. But I think there'll always be a value in paper because it's that recognition, like you've won an award, you've qualified for CMAP. It's nice to get a physical certificate of that. So I think there'll be a more value added when paper's used, is how I would put it, but we'll always have relevance in our lives.
Yeah, I think you touched on something really important there, Roger, that if anything, as we move into a more digital space, the value of paper will go up. People, as you said, a handwritten letter to a customer will be far more valuable than it would have been 20 or 30 years ago when you were doing it all of the time. But what we can do, going back to my point about use technology to take admin away from yourself, I think we can move almost all of the application process. Certainly that can go paperless. In most cases it already is. We were always hung up on these lenders being hung up on bank statements being originals, and even internet statements having to be printed off and taken to your branch to be stamped. I mean, it's just the mind boggles at why you would want the customer to do that. So I think absolutely our end of the process in particular, I think we can get to fully paperless, but I think that there will still be value in using it at the right time and using it in the right way. On a personal level, I've done some study outside of the mortgage industry in the last couple of years, and at the end of those study, I got a nice certificate through the post from the Open University. And would I have had the same smile on my face if I'd got something emailed to me as a PDF than I did when I opened up that envelope and had a certificate in front of me? I took a photo of it so that I could make it digital, but it was just, this is 2 years of toil and hardship summed up in a piece of A4 paper, and it meant quite a lot to me. So the emotional attachment that we'll have to that type of thing, I think it's going to be a long, long time before we lose that.
Yeah, I must admit, Roger, that was a good example. I didn't think of the whole device and paper books. So when the devices first came out, I went very much all device. I'm now 50-50, because you're right, I want to leave my device at home and go and sit in the park of a weekend and read my book and not have anything come through to me and just sort of go. I do get excited when I go to collect the post now, because we do get a bit more post, whether it be a hard copy magazine or, like you say, cards, birthday, Christmas cards. It is actually nice not having it pop up on an email or a WhatsApp message, happy Christmas, kiss. So
yeah,
okay, so I do agree. I think the legal world will always probably be that little bit behind brokers and lenders, and I think that's probably just a traditional thing. I think they are much more advanced than they were, but there is still that need for wet signatures, and while that need for wet signature remains, that piece of paper, which is a very important piece of paper, that is going to remain for the foreseeable future. And I think for the next few years, while we get rid of the COVID hangover, I don't think it's going to be on the priority at the moment for them to do, but I certainly think it's probably gone up in solicitors, because I know I spoke to one solicitor the other week. He's always attached to his paper files, loves a paper file, breaks into a cold sweat if you actually say the word paperless to him, doesn't like it, and he's now amazed that he can actually work without most of the paper because he's been forced into doing it. So I think it will have forced quite a lot in the legal profession to think, actually, we can do this. We do need quite an element of the paper still, but actually we can survive doing this online.
Absolutely.
I think as well, probably with the whole paperless, solicitor teams really do need to work together. You do work in different levels where you've got the solicitor, you've got the paralegal, you've got the assistant. There is a lot to be said for solicitors actually being together, because a conveyance does take a long period of time. They don't go in a week. So it is actually not forgetting that, again, it's all back to the human element. You still need to have that in.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
But well, thank you for your time today, chaps.
The only thing about reading a book in the park, though, Emma, is everyone can see the title of your book, so you have to be a little bit careful, don't you?
Yeah, I figured that out once on a train journey, that I didn't realise what the book was I was reading, and then figured it quite quickly, and it went back in the handbag. Yes, there's definitely room for why the Kindle is good for that, I've got to say. But thank you for taking the time out today. Like I say, this will go on YouTube in the next couple of days, and we'll share the link out with everybody.
Welcome, thank you.
But enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Take care, bye.
Yeah, you too.
Bye, Emma.
Take it easy. Bye for now.
Bye.